This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everybody. She is someone that can take you on a guided healing journey and truly change your life. And we all deal with stuff. We all have traumas. We all have things going on in our lives that we need to heal from. And part of that is done with hypnotherapy, energy healing, i.e. Reiki, and so much more. And we're going to learn a lot today about all of this. And she joins us as a holistic healer. Adrianne Smith is on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Steve. How are you?
Real good. Real good. Glad you're here and back with us. And we're keeping it in the family. You brought along a guest. And am I hearing this right? This is your brother. Is that right?
Yes, this is actually my brother.
Yes, I am her brother.
Nate,
Yep.
welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks.
So I'm gonna put Adrianne over to the side for just a moment. And with you, Nate, what do you do to help people? As I understand it, it's the physical aspect of things, right?
Yeah, more so. I'm a nutritional therapist and I'm a movement and exercise coach. So everything from strength and conditioning to myofascial therapy and rehab with people.
Wow. How interesting, where it seems like, Adrianne, you're focusing on the mind, the mindset, the energy, where Nate, you're dealing with the truly the physical part of things. Like I find that interesting. And your brother and sister. Wow. Myofascial, learning a lot about that. Even have had some treatments too, where
Yeah.
I don't think people realize fascia and what's going on in our bodies. Is fascia the stuff, like when you cut up, not to be gross here, but when you cut up a chicken, that white stuff that holds everything together, is that what it is? And is that the same thing in our bodies?
Yes, that is what it is. And it's every microscopic coating of every cell and muscle fiber and everything. So fascia actually forms before your heart, brain, or lungs or anything form in vitro. So when the embryo is growing, basically you can think of it as like the casing for all the organs grow first. So then the heart shows up, the brain, the spinal cord start to grow inside of the fascia. And in some ways, some people would even argue like your skeleton is fascia, like it's all fascia in a sense. But really the silver skin, yeah, you nailed it. When you're butchering an animal, that silvery sinewy stuff is the most obvious fascia. Your tendons, your ligaments, all that stuff is like the most obvious forms of fascia.
So I'm hearing more and more that all the stuff that we deal with gets into the cellular level in our bodies. And essentially, is that what we're talking about here?
In a way, I mean, what specifically are you hearing with the cell stuff?
That experiences we have, it's not just in our minds, it's also within our bodies. So when we
Oh,
talk
sure, sure. Like, yeah, the issues are in the tissues kind of thing.
oh, I never heard it. I'm
Yeah.
I'm gonna write
Yeah.
that one down, man.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Issues are in the tissues.
Yeah,
It sounds
so
ridiculous, but it's the truth.
it is the truth. So there's a great book by Bessel van der Kolk, I think, Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read that book or not, but he gets into this, and so much trauma or, physical, energetic, emotional does get stored in some way in the body, but it's not necessarily, I don't think it's exactly what people think it is. I think when they hear that, they're like, oh, it's like my childhood is in my hips. It's like, no, not necessarily. It's that there's a reaction that shows up when, like, let's say there was some sort of like sexual trauma, for instance. The hips happen to be that reactive area because it is so close to that place that was traumatized. And so what's actually happening is you have more of this psychological cascade of stress hormones that are released, and then the tissue locks itself up. It's not that it's always locked up, and it's not that stretching your hips is going to release the trauma. It might, maybe that association will help. But it's more so that the cortisol dump, the dopamine, like whatever, all the neurotransmitters that are associated with the event start to cascade, and then you may lock up in a certain area. Now, like the reverse is also true. You could have a physical ailment, like maybe you had a bad mountain bike crash, and then you are stiffened up in an area for years and years and years. And that can show up as like locked down fascia or physical trauma. Um, but I think it's like, I think it's both, a physical abuse of whatever nature, whether it was self-inflicted like a mountain biking accident or it was done to you by somebody, that can also become a psychological trauma. Fear can show up around those events. So it's like, I think the main thing that I concern myself with is like, how do we actually work through that? Sometimes fixating on the story or the action that caused the problem can help, but I don't think that's usually the thing. It's like we're in the present moment. Let's focus on separating from that event and like what can we do right now to help you.
So, Adrianne, with what Nate is saying, do you feel that we got to take care of both here? We have to take care of, the get to the core of it within our mind, but then also work with somebody like him dealing with the
Yeah.
body aspect, the physical.
Yeah, definitely. And I do see this a lot too. And I think that's why, like Nate and I are so complementary because he deals with the physical layer issues. And then I deal with, like he is perfectly suited for doing all of that work on what is physically happening with the person who would have experienced something traumatic, on a physical layer. And then what I do is I am able to then take that person and help them release it on a mental and spiritual level. Like, for example, Nate's example of the hips being locked up after some kind of a sexual trauma or something like this. Um, that would be correlated with the sacral chakra, where I can do Reiki and energy work there to help release that. And when I do guided healing journeys, I can also go into a hypnotic regression where I'm able to, take the person through a very, in a calm state of mind where they can process the things that they need to process in a psychological level. Um, and then also help energetically to release that. And once that energetic release happens, then the physical issues become so much easier to work through. And so then, they can go to Nate and be like, okay, cool. Well, hey, I just had this big clearing and I released all of this trauma and stuff. Like, now let's work on the body. And it'll be 10 times more effective. Well, I don't even know. I don't think there's a statistic on it actually, but much more effective, let's say, than one or the other alone. So, really kind of like focusing on the fact that we are beings that are made up of a body, a mind, and a spirit, and having that connection, that intersection of all of those kind of synergistically healed. And that to me is what holistic wellness means.
The things we talk about that might challenge us, be it a biking accident or somebody did something to you, traumatic, and somebody might typically focus on the physical. Yeah, I've got this going on. This is here. This is there. Do you feel, Adrienne, that yes, you can get help for that? Maybe physical therapy, more, yeah, whatever it is to walk you through the journey. You're not going to really get to the point where you want to be unless you take care of this up here, your mind, and also the energy, that you're harboring, whatever's going on inside you.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a lot more effective when you have your mind on board. And I'm sure, Nate, that you see this all the time too with clients who, if they have a mental block of something that like,
Mhm.
oh, I can't physically do this, like I'm not capable of doing this, then they won't be able to do it. But if they just don't think about it and they get over that mental block, like Nate, okay, why don't you
Mhm.
tell him about like me trying to jump up on the blocks?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So what I was gonna say, like, and I'll bring up that point, Adri, but
And by the way,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you guys are talking about. I was at the gym
yeah,
3 hours ago, and
yeah,
I put my phone and my bottle of water on top of the blocks, and I look at them, and
yeah,
I'm like, yeah, I'll just do some stretching here now. I get you.
yeah. Yeah. So I mean, all action, all movement, every single thing we do starts up here. It starts in our mind. It's a conscious thought or not, or a subconscious thought that signals some nervous system release to do something. So if I want to eat food, digestion starts when I think about it, not when I put it in my mouth. So the
Mm.
digestive process starts when I'm like, oh, I'm getting hungry. And then it starts happening. And then I look at the food and it happens even more. And then I taste it and it happens even more. So it's all layers. So it's always happening up here first. And so like for Adri, there was like in the parkour community, they call it breaking the jump. So you have to break the jump. She had a fear response, unintentional, as most of them are, where it's like, and that's what it is. At the end of the day, you'd be like, oh, I'm just apprehensive. It's like it's a fear response. Your body doesn't want to do it because you're unsure of the result. And that result is always risk versus danger. So the danger is a tangible, factual thing. The box is X high. The danger is you hit your shins or whatever the case. The risk is us. We're the risk. So you can control risk. You can control risk by progression and skill and working towards something, creating goals, whatever. We get better at a thing to mitigate risk in our lives, financial, physical, emotional, whatever. We create skills and things, and that's how we mitigate risk. And so for her, it was just like a matter of like, okay, I just have to like take that first leap. All of a sudden, oh, I'm not as much of a risk as I thought I was. I was able to land on the box. I also have a soft padded box that helps people do that because if they do mess up, it doesn't hurt.
Hmm.
But it's still, you know, the mind still gets in the way.
Sure.
But another perspective that I like to tell people, and I've seen this a lot with tons of different clients, is like some people need a bottom up perspective for coaching. So bottom up meaning physical first, then mental, emotional, then spiritual being the top. And then some people need a top down approach where they start with the spiritual and then they work into the body. So I've had many clients start with the body and they think what they want is like just purely physical results. They think that's all it is. And then we start going and working together. And then all of a sudden they're learning about themselves. They're learning about how they learn. They're learning about their emotional reactions to things. And they can see, you know, taking movement into the outdoors is something I'm really big on. And so that becomes all of a sudden a spiritual pursuit,
Mm.
you know, or the reverse is true. Somebody starts in the spiritual aspect and maybe it leads them down this path of all of a sudden realizing, oh, maybe I shouldn't be having 10 beers every single night. And, you know, like not, and I've sat on the couch every night after work this week. Like maybe I should get up and do something. So that spiritual realization leads them into mental, emotional changes and then down into physical changes. So it's
Mm.
either bottom up or top down. I think most people need both, but like, but one usually leads to the other. So
I need both. And as you're speaking, I'm saying to myself, I need to go kayaking later because I haven't done it enough this summer. And it's my thing. That's my
there
zen.
you go.
And what you just said um, about your digestion starts when you think of it. It goes right. A friend of mine, we say the same thing. So we'll be out and we'll say, yeah, you want to get something to eat? And she'll be like, yeah, okay. And as we're getting closer to going where we're going, we look at each other as like, I didn't realize how hungry I was
Hmm.
because I didn't realize your body's already digesting once you're starting to think about food. Then it's like, yeah, I got to eat now. We weren't even hungry 30 minutes before.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then
exactly.
it's like you're thinking about it and then you become ravenous. But now I know why, because your body's saying, all right, I'm working. The stomach's working here. We got nothing to work on, though. You didn't feed us, but hey, yeah, didn't even realize
Hmm.
that. Wow. Adrienne, did you guys, when you were younger, were you talking about this kind of stuff? Were you on the same page? Like, how did that all go? I'm truly
Hmm.
fascinated.
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting story. Yeah, when we were younger, I feel like, Nate and our sister and myself, like we were pretty much, just your typical kids. We didn't really think about these things too deeply at the time. And then as we got older, so I'm the oldest of the three of us, and as we got older, and I had my first son, he ended up having a lot of like dietary issues, celiac, things like this going on. And so I started, you know, that was when I really kind of opened up a lot of my own abilities to heal and to research things and really like nerd out on what kind of dietary things and physical things could help my son, right? Nutritional supplements, different things like this. Foods to avoid and all this kind of stuff. And so I ended up, when I moved out to Colorado permanently when he was a toddler, And Nate was, being a little bit younger than me, was, obviously kind of in that phase of like, oh, wow, like learning about all of this kind of stuff. As I was explaining it, like, yeah, this is why Michael has to eat this and this and this, is because he can't tolerate this and this and this. And this is what happens to his body if he does eat it. And then, you see like this big physiological reaction if he had something that, he wasn't supposed to have. Whereas, if he stayed on a clean, healthy diet, he was like a different kid. He was healthy, he was happy, he was, emotionally regulated and all of this. And so I think that, that experience kind of like really, it sort of affected Nate in a way that he kind of took that and ran with it in his own direction, which is awesome. And Nate, like, I'll let you speak more to that. But I
Yeah, I
think
think
that was
it.
kind of, yeah.
Oh no, sorry. You go. You can finish it.
No, 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 go ahead. I was just saying, I think that that might be where it kind
No,
of
no
started.
fighting, no sibling fighting here. Come on, calm it down.
Yeah, I mean, so when she moved out here, yeah, more permanently, I was like 15 or 16. So I was like a high school punk, and so at the time, I would say it planted a seed, like seeing it in her, you talking about it, Adrian, and thinking about it. But I was like, that's not real. I'm gonna eat all whatever I can eat whatever I want. That's ridiculous. Like I'm gonna eat whatever I want. And because you're a teenage boy, and so I was rebellious to everyone. I didn't want to listen to anybody. But it definitely was in my mind. And I was always, I think for me, it was, I had this juxtaposition of like, I won't get into like all the details, but like I really liked to party when I was in high school, but I was also really into like biking and weightlifting and hiking and like being in the outdoors. So I was like, I wanted to be fit and be an athlete, but I also wanted to party. But I was also very interested in I took a human anatomy class and healthy habits and nutrition in high school. And like, so I always kind of had that interest. But it got pushed to the wayside, as a lot of things do when you're a young man and you're not really like sure where you're heading and what direction you're going in. And I think everything Adri was saying came full circle and I'll skip over all the, the dirty details of it, but I got in a lot of trouble, suffice to say. And it got to one point where I was just kind of like hit a really big low, and I like stepped on a scale one day and I was like, at the time I was 198, which I was 198 a few months ago, but it was a good 198. This was like a not good 198. I'm like, what the hell? Like, what happened to you, dude? What is going on? I was only 21 maybe or 20 years old at that time. And I'm like, what happened? Like I went from being in like pretty good shape from high school to just not caring and whatever. And so I remember, I think I talked to you, Adrian, or I talked to mom or something, but I was like, all right, well, they always are talking about gluten and corn and dairy and soy. And so I like removed all of the, like, now I think dairy is a good thing, but that's a whole other conversation. But at the time, like, there weren't a lot of good options for dairy. It was mostly just like Kraft and Horizon and conventional stuff. And
Mhm.
so I removed all of that. I cut sugar, gluten, corn, dairy, and soy completely out of my diet, no alcohol. And in 1 month, I lost 30 pounds. It just like, it was like all inflammation. It just like melted off of my body. And I started training again. And I was like, whoa, that was crazy. And so that like was a big spark for me to take it more serious and to like look at it differently. And now I've just been on this, yeah, almost 15-year plus journey of like learning this stuff and really researching it and diving in. And now I think I've come to like a lot more of a grounded place than I was in my early 20s, where I was very extremist about things. And now I think I have a lot more like realism and especially a lot more empathy for where people are at in their lives. And I know that not everybody wants to go that hard, quote unquote, with their diet or their exercise. And most people just want to like, hey, like what's a convenient path for me here? And so I try to empathize with that a little bit.
What a wake up and a testament to the garbage we put in our bodies. Like we don't even
Yeah.
realize it. Yeah. I mean, most of us will say alcohol. I love craft beer, gotta admit, on the
Mhm.
weekend I'll have, a few with friends or whatever. I just like the flavor. Um,
Yeah.
but we know it's probably not good for you. Same thing with dairy. There was one point I was talking to a friend of mine, and this is going back, probably like 10 years. And he's into fitness, nutrition, and he looked at what I was eating. He was like, dude, you realize how much dairy you're ingesting? I'm like, what are you talking about? I have a little bit of yogurt here. He goes, oh, the protein powder you're making smooth. It's whey. Aren't you getting it?
Mm-hmm.
It's dairy. Like I was eating dairy like all day long and never even realized it. And then now I'm
Mm-hmm.
mindful of it. Um, where does the mindset shift? Like for you, Nate, it came when you had that realization of what you were eating, when you eliminated it. It seems like that was kind of the turning point. How do we, and I ask this of both of you, how do we make a mindset shift and then make it stick? Is there any suggestions on that?
I'll let you take it, Adrian, then I'll go.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Nate. So yeah, I definitely have noticed a big shift in people who want to make a change, right? And especially in the case like, like I discovered that I had celiac disease when my oldest son was 2 years old. So we both made that shift.
Mm,
And I felt like an entirely different person. So, similar to Nate's experience of like, he dropped 30 pounds in a month just from shifting his diet and taking out all those inflammatory foods. I did the same thing, but a couple of years prior, and or maybe it was a few years prior. Either way, it was a huge night and day difference for me. And so once I realized like how good I felt after cutting that stuff out of my diet, it was like a game changer. And I was like, you know what? I am so over it with eating like crap. I'm going to eat healthy foods, clean, whole, healthy foods and feel so much better. And then finally, about a little over a year ago, I did actually cut out alcohol completely and have not had a drink since. And I tell you what, that is another one that I know so many people struggle with that because, even if you don't drink heavily and it's just an occasional social thing, I mean, it is very socially acceptable. It's very accessible. And
hmm
it does, feel nice to kind of unwind and stuff like this. But I think what a lot of people don't realize about it is that one drink takes a lot longer to detox from your system than you think it does. So, if you just have a glass of wine tonight, then tomorrow night you go to have another glass of wine, your brain chemistry still isn't completely reset from last night's drink, right? And so being able to cut that out completely, I feel a huge difference in my clarity of mind and spirit, as well as a huge reduction in inflammation in my body. Like I lost weight, my joint pain improved. I'm able to really, like hit it hard at the gym and all this kind of stuff. So, and on top of that, having, the spiritual work being done at the same time as taking care of your body, it really is an amazing difference. And to be able to make that shift, I think like, I always joke about like baby steps on the bus, Bob, like one thing at a time. And whether it's top down or bottom up, like Nate was saying, making any kind of a positive shift will encourage you to continue. That's kind of my
And,
take on
and
it.
you gotta want it. You truly
Yes.
have to want it
Yes. You have to
because
be ready for it. You have to want it. Yeah.
hypnotherapy, one of the things that you do, I, close relative, I suggested it. 3 sessions with someone, and I know the practitioner. This is way before we met. It worked beautiful for me. I know why it didn't work because she didn't want it bad enough, and she didn't
Mhm.
believe in it. And that's her personality. I should have I should have thought that ahead of time, but I figured, I'm sure it's going to work. You got to want it. Nate, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, you said, when somebody decides to make a change, that's the first step, right? And the thing I see over and over again with clients who they're paying me, they've come, they've paid me, they decided to make a change. But then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, here's the things I need you to do at home. It's like, oh, well, that's, it's tough. I would say the number one thing that they have to just keep in their mind is consistency.
Hmm.
Consistency is it. There's no secret magic pill to anything. You just stay consistent. And it's whether it's 10 minutes a day or 2 hours a day of whatever your practice is, stay consistent with it. And don't get on the shame train of like, oh, well, I ate a cookie and I didn't intend to eat a cookie. It's like, cool, whatever. You ate the cookie. Enjoy the cookie. Now just continue. Now get back on the track of where you're trying to go. So the consistency, I think, is the biggest piece that most people don't really realize. And that consistency means that they have to fall in love with the process and not the outcome. And so
Mm.
that's where consistency is easy because you love the process. You don't want the outcome. And the outcome, because the outcome's going to always change. I can't tell you how many like goals or outcomes I've reached. And I'm like, well, that's not satisfying. Like I hit the PR, I ran the mile, I got the abs or whatever. I'm like, I'm still not satisfied. It's like the false peak syndrome for a mountaineer. You're like, there's the summit, and then you like hit it, and you're like, oh, it's another one. We got to go another quarter mile, and then you hit that, and you're like, oh, it's another quarter mile actually. And so, why would I fixate on that when there's all these wildflowers around me every quarter mile? There's this beautiful field every quarter mile. So, yeah, just enjoy the process.
Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah.
I'm in a men's group, and we have standards we set before we go on different tours, and we support each other, community service, leadership, and all of that. And I love our current standards: push, lead, embrace discomfort, trust the process. It's all there.
Yeah.
You gotta, it's the journey is part of the ride. Thank you both for today. Just what a cool dynamic, from the physical to the mental. Adrianne, how do we connect with you if somebody's looking to make some changes? And certainly you can do most of this, if not all of it, virtually.
Yeah, definitely. So my website is wildhearthealingco.com. And I'm also on Facebook as Wild Heart Healing. So those are two really easy ways to get a hold of me.
Beautiful. And Nate, how do we connect with you?
Yeah, mine is my Instagram. It's Nate_P_Smith. And then there's a link in there that has my calendar and my coaching programs and all that stuff. So
very cool. Thank you both for today. Just really a very different dynamic. And I'm gonna end here in saying that I wasn't hungry, but now my stomach is rumbling because I'm thinking about food based on what we just talked about. Crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you both. I really appreciate it.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.